Hi, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about how we express things with type. Seems obvious that we express what we want to say and how we want to say it with what we write. True, and that's how alphabets and letters work. But type also has an expressive quality that can be conveyed through the way it's designed and the way it's put together and the way it's actually illustrated. And so let's look at some examples of what that means. So letters, in addition to being actual glyphs and letters of an alphabet that are useful in spelling words and phrases, are also effective symbols. So what does that mean? That means that we can read something in a letter. We can read more than one thing at a time in a letter. We can literally learn how to read, how to interpret letters and read them, but also symbolically, they can be used a little bit like hieroglyphs and little graphics that can say more and add to the story. That's what we want to do with typography, is add to the story. We don't want to take away from it. We want to add to it. So this plays around with a complex psychological principle that we use in design, which is called Gestalt. It's a fancy word for a fancy process that has been studied and evaluated, but it basically means that when we see visual objects, human beings, when they see visual objects and visual designs and patterns, we derive meaning from what we see. And this is unique to us. We have the ability to draw and create things in a flat 2D form and actually derive meaning from them. It's the basis of language, but it's also the basis of design. It's the language of visual art. Here's some examples of what Gestalt means. Proximity, similarity, continuance, closure, figure, foreground, and background. In other words, when we see things, we can interpret and read symbols and symbolism, and we can find meaning in those graphics. This is actually why logos work, because we can construct a design and we can see multiple things in that design. We can see a letter, we can see a word, we can see an object or an illustration, and we can read it and interpret it. Again, this is a unique human quality explained by this complex process. This video isn't about that process, but it explains why this works and how it works. And so these are the types of things we're playing with when we're designing letters and we're using them in typography. Here's an example. This graphic here is the word mother, but look at how the and child were included into the center of the O. Obviously, this is like a symbolic meaning behind it. You've got these words held inside the O like a baby in a mother's womb. Clever, creative, all done with type. So not only does it literally say mother and child, but it looks like mother and child too, symbolically. And we understand that. Here's another one. Moon. Very simple, basic letters, but look at how by changing the size of the second O and placing it up and to the right a little bit, it looks like it's another little sphere orbiting the other one. So that's happening up here, right? The designer puts those things together, we read it, and we can see it. So again, symbolically, this is communicating on more than one level at the same time. Van Gogh. This one is funny. I like how, just like he lopped off his ear, we've lopped off a little bit of the G, and you get the message. Or this one, robbery. The E is, robbing the Y with the R. So again, what's clever about these designs is they're done with just letters. They haven't added anything. They may have stretched, a crossbar or a stroke, but they haven't added any additional drawing. There's another one, a little wink and a smile. Just bent the L a little bit, stretched out the I, and you get the message. This is why emojis work, right? Because we can interpret meaning from little glyphs put together. I like this one too, the X running for the I, trying to exit. Here's the O and the L turned into a clock. Love it. So we've seen some examples where just using letters, but by changing their scale, size, and position, you can derive an additional extra meaning. And that's what makes them really powerful. And so I'd like to relate that to logo design. A lot of times you can just have a plain old logo that's just a name, maybe a little graphic symbol, and there you're done. But I think logos that have dual meanings or can communicate on more than one level at the same time are more powerful, and they definitely are more memorable. So here's an example. Amazon, boy, we're surrounded by Amazon. We see it everywhere, right? Essentially, it was derived from the idea of A to Z. So you've got A to the Z with the arrow, and that's the basis of that logo. Very simple, but the message is clear. We have everything from A to Z. Also, as a tertiary thing, it kind of looks like a smile, kind of a crooked smile, which I think is another subliminal thing going on, communicating to us that not only does this store have everything from A to Z, but they're happy about it. Baskin Robbins, this one's been around for a while. Baskin Robbins, famous for its 31 flavors. Have you ever noticed the 31 in the middle of the B and the R? It's something they wanted to emphasize, and it's there hidden in plain sight. Again, a logo working on more levels at the same time makes it clever and memorable. FedEx, this one has been around for a long time, and people talk about it in logo design class. You've got that hidden arrow, that subliminal message that Federal Express is moving things, it's moving forward, getting things done. Now, as a consumer, when you see that, do you notice that? Sometimes, sometimes you might see that positive and negative space and go, oh yeah, there's an arrow there. What does that mean? Does that, embed that idea in your mind symbolically that this company is moving forward? It kind of does. It works. This is one of my favorites. I don't even know if this company's in business anymore. I don't think it is. Sun Microsystems. And I've always loved their logo because it's an ambigram. So if you take the symbol to the side, it spells sun, but it spells it from any direction. If you turned that, you would still see the word sun, and it's always there. And that's working on like 3 or 4 levels, right? You've got a graphic, then you've got the word sun, and then you've got the shape, and it's an ambigram, so it works no matter which direction you turn it. There's, to me, the interesting nature of that logo and then kind of boring type next to it. But the symbol has always fascinated me. Here's one, just a random one I found online. I love how simple it is, but then of course, you've got the plug, but then the E stands for Ed's Electric, right? Clever. So when you're designing logos and working with type, I think it's always good to try to push the envelope and see if you can get to something like this. These types of logos, to me, are really special, and they stand out. This one here is, it's not entirely typographic, but that S is formed out of those fish. And I just loved how cool that was to get that nice serif typeface, but then also to get the secondary message that this is about sustainable seafood, and you get that little message with the fish shape. So looking for those types of things, figuring out ways for your type to be expressive, a lot of times involves adding symbolism to your typography, finding ways to either embed actual graphics or figure out secondary interactions between the positive and negative space. So if you go back to that, where we started with that Gestalt theory, playing around with any of these principles really helps with your typography and can make it really dynamic, interesting, and most of all, memorable. All right, so thanks for listening. Check back with you next time.